ready for the presentation.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Sherri. Doing the countdown, it mutes me, so I forgot. But good evening, everybody. Come on in here and welcome to our second speaker series of this school year. I'm excited about this topic. This topic that we're going to talk about tonight gets me giddy. It gets my blood boiling. It is one of the most important topics that I think that it must be discussed, or why else even talk about education if children are not taught how to read, because they have a right to be taught how to read. And so tonight we have Sherri Lucas Hall. She is the CEO, the president, the founder of Design to Teach Tutoring in Georgia. And we are so glad to have you back, Sherri. What's up?
Thank you for having me back.
We appreciate it. We're so glad that God saw fit for you to come back and be with us.
I will come back and talk as many times as I need to until we get it. We got to make some changes.
I appreciate that. Our parents really responded well to the last time that you were here, and it's such a critical moment here in Tennessee because our TCAP scores actually just came out Friday. The school level TCAP scores came out, and let me tell you something. It was sad. We have some literacy rates below 10%. Yeah. And, it's something that, it's funny because here it is Monday afternoon. There's an article that hits on Friday and nobody said a mumbling word. Nobody said a mumbling word. No, nobody said anything since the article dropped in Chalkbeat. Like nobody from the district, like this is like, and the thing is, the narrative is that nobody is surprised. We're using COVID as the excuse. And so last night I was thinking to myself, like, well, what's going to be the excuse in the spring? Like, are they already typing that up already? Because see, excuses are easy to come by, right? Sherri, like we can make excuses. What we have not been able to do is to teach children how to read. So I'm glad that we are talking about this tonight. And so what's been going on with you?
Just trying to keep this business going. I have some good news. I'm not ready to share it yet, but I'll be working with one of the districts here to tutor students in the district. So I'm really happy about that. I'm really happy about that.
That's good news for the children of Georgia.
That's my best news right now.
That's good. And thank you for sharing that news. I mean, if you're listening and you're from Georgia, like, please reach out to Sherri. She has a business, Design to Teach, where she tutors. And she tutors based on the science. Like, she's got the receipts that this works, because we've been doing it wrong for decades. And, she's getting it right. And if you're in Georgia, like, please reach out to her and support her business. But also, like, if anything else, make sure your children can read. Excuse me, but we want to make sure the children can read. And she is very dedicated to doing that. So, hey, Jarvis, we're going to say hi to some people, Sherri, real quick before we get in here. We're going to give people a chance to get in here. Hello, everybody. Scotty and John, Rhea. Let's see who else I can see. Jarvis. I'm learning how to operate this thing. Hello, you guys. If I missed anybody, people are coming in as I'm speaking. So just come on in here, say hello, invite, share, like, because this is information that everyone needs and everyone deserves. So, all right. So, Sherri, what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut my mouth because I'm over here just a cat. And I want you to go ahead and get into what you came here to do. So guys, please make sure that you're listening up closely, you're sharing, you're liking, and you're asking questions as Sherri is teaching the parents tonight. So Sherri, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
So I'm gonna pull up my presentation. And can you see it?
Yeah, we can see it just fine.
Great. Yeah. Okay. So the question we have right now is, why does the reading failure exist? Why are our kids struggling? And for me, the truth is that too many educators never received the knowledge we needed to serve students better. And I can say that honestly because I went to school to get a master's degree to teach. And I distinctly remember some of the coursework that I took wasn't really focused on actual reading instruction. It was more implied than anything else. And I don't think I even thought that it should be different. My thinking was, okay, they're preparing me to go into a classroom and teach. And once I finish this master's degree, I will have all the tools that I need to really be effective in the classroom. Now, I had already been in the school system for 4 years as a parapro and after school teacher. So it's not like I didn't understand the environment. I knew what the environment was. And when I started with my master's degree, I was teaching kindergarten, as a matter of fact. So I was already teaching provisionally with a provisional certificate to teach. So I figured that, I would go and get this master's degree and they would literally teach me how to teach reading and be effective. It didn't happen. I remember going into the classroom and the first year was great because I was in a kindergarten class that I was already familiar with. But after that, I began to struggle and I knew that there was something missing. And what I know is that the reading failure exists because, in all honesty, many teachers, our teacher prep was more in balanced literacy. And balanced literacy is more of an implied guide to reading. It's, the cueing of look at this picture and, and now read this word. And that's not really reading. It's teaching children sight words based on having them memorize words. And again, that's also not based on the science. The science is reading. The knowledge that we need as teachers is the knowledge of the science in reading. And it's a study of many disciplinary areas. And this is a study that's over 5 decades old. I mean, honestly, it's about as old as I am. So the science and education somehow have not connected. I do not know why. And that's the thing. I don't understand why science and education have not connected. This is not research that hasn't been done. It says this research has been conducted over the last 5 decades across the world, and it's derived from thousands of studies conducted in multiple languages. The science of reading has culminated in a preponderance of evidence to inform how proficient reading and writing develop, why some have the difficulty, and how we can most effectively assess and teach, and therefore improve student outcomes through prevention and intervention for reading difficulties. Okay? And we educators need the science of reading, plain and simple. It tells us how the brain processes the English language and what we need to do to support that processing system for students. The brain processing system. There's a 4-part processing system that our brain does or goes through when a child is learning how to read. Phonological processing is first, identifies and remembers speech sounds and words. Those letter sounds that our children, don't know, like the beginning sound of the word rat, just that sound of r, it helps students to remember those sounds. Orthographic processing takes in the patterns of letters and words. That's the one that helps in sight word learning. The two work together for phonics to teach 2 children to read words. Then there's the meaning processing system. It creates that dictionary of word meanings. And then finally, the context processing, which supports the meaning processing. Strong instruction, of course, has all of those four elements for brain processing. Scarborough's reading rope it details the elements of what's needed for strong reading. Foundationally, we start with word recognition, and that's phonological awareness, decoding, and sight recognition. For a lot of kids, that foundation is weak, and we cannot build on what's next, which is language comprehension, if the foundation of word recognition is weak. And this also goes into the simple view of reading, which says that reading comprehension is made up of word recognition and language comprehension. That's essentially what the Scarborough's reading rope breaks down. If you look at it, there are other elements once you get beyond word recognition, but you can't do, when you think of the simple view of reading, and you say reading comprehension comes from word recognition and language comprehension. It's a product. So if either one of those, language comprehension or word recognition, is weak, you won't have reading comprehension. What I know is the strongest relationship for our students in the school is a relationship with their teachers. Unfortunately, teachers need to be better equipped to serve students, particularly in communities of color, where students have been systemically failed, particularly Black students. And what I know is that parents are trusting the school system. Parents have always trusted the school system from the very beginning. And parents are trusting that, schools are going to do what by right by their students. But teachers can't really do that if we don't have the tools and the knowledge, particularly that knowledge about the science of reading. We can't do that effectively if we don't have those tools. And right now, I won't say that I'm an expert because I'm not. What I do know is that I've spent 3 years studying this. I've spent 3 years studying the science of reading. I spent about 6 months now doing letters training. And what I know is that teachers need more training in understanding the science of reading, and understanding that simple view of reading, and understanding the Scarborough's reading rope and all of the elements that go into play to help students learn how to read. And right now, parents are trusting that teachers have that. And I have to be honest, we don't. Too many of us don't. And, we have to really begin to, as a country, we've got to really begin to invest in making sure that teachers are well prepared to go into classrooms and teach. And we have to teach based on how the brain processes language. And what we've been doing is using balanced literacy approaches that really don't support far too many students. And so with that in mind, the research in the classroom, there's a straight connection between, the science of how the brain processes language and how we're currently teaching children how to read. And we have to change what we're doing in the classroom. And I want to make sure that I share the resources that I have. There is a professor, Stanislaus Dehaene, that I spent a lot of time studying, and he talks about exactly how the brain processes language, and each part of the brain and how language goes through the brain. It's a great video to watch. It's actually on YouTube, and I provided it because I want parents to be able to go and watch it. The other one is signs of dyslexia. Dyslexia is another issue that people are not really dealing with in the schoolhouse. And it's something that has affected a lot of children because dyslexia is a neurological weakness. It's a weakness in how kids process the sounds of language. And when kids can't process the sounds of language, they need explicit instruction in how to do that. And the dyslexia resource is a great place to go to find information about those challenges and the signs that tell you that your child may be struggling with dyslexia. Sometimes just structured literacy instruction, that type of instruction that's based on the science of reading, will help a student that's struggling. And we don't have that kind of instruction going on in classrooms right now.
Yeah. I mean, this right here is so powerful. We had a fellowship class share. I want to share with the audience. We had a fellowship class that just graduated. And in week 2, I believe, I began to explain to them that the brain is just not set up to even process the English language, right? So then we're trying to force teach in a way that our brains can't comprehend. And so I began to throw out the numbers to them, like 5% of all people are able to process the English language, and 35%, hey, they got a little more instruction, the balance reading, they can probably get it okay. The 60% of us, 60% are unable to process the English language. And that is why you have such a huge literacy gap. And so you asked a great question. You said, when is this country gonna wake up? Like, how can we not realize what's going on here? And so we always ask, is it intentional, or is it a coincidence?
And that's where I am at this point. Mm-hmm. If we know, if this science is over 50 years old, right? Mm-hmm. And the truth is that the connection between the science and educations in classrooms, it's not making that connection. So that's one of the first issues.
Yeah.
If we know the science is this old, why are we not using it inside the classrooms? If we know how the brain works, and that's what the science of reading tells us. It tells us exactly how the brain processes language, right? Mm-hmm. Language is natural. Children learn how to talk naturally. Yes.
Stop right there, because that's what parents are confused. They say, well, he say everything else, and he plays those video games. Oh yeah, I'm bringing it home. I'm telling the truth today. I'm talking to my community. Okay, it's not enough for them to be able to turn on a cell phone and play a cell phone. Or play a video game. It has nothing to do with, I'm sorry, I'm getting passionate about this because I hear so many people say that mythology, that's a myth. That's a damn lie is what it is, because it has nothing to do with them learning how to read. So talk about that. Yeah, little man can talk as good as you and me, but little man still needs the instruction that he needs to learn how to read. It's two different things. Talk about that.
It's explicit, structured, and cumulative instruction. You have to begin with the phonological sounds that they know, that are attached to that language that they know. They know the language, but now you have to connect the sounds that they know to the letters that they see, and where it's speech to print. It's not print to speech. It's not the other way around. So he knows how to talk. He knows how to say words. He knows how to say, but now you have to explicitly teach him how to transfer what he knows to what he's reading and the words that he sees in print. You have to explicitly teach him how to go from the word that says dog and can make the connections to the sound d, ah, and j, and then making dog g, and then making sure he knows those sounds are connected to letters that represent those sounds that he makes, that he knows how to make. You've got to make the instruction explicit.
Come on now. Can you beat reading into your children?
Can you do what?
Can you beat reading into your children?
Oh no.
Can you put every book in the land of bookland in their hands and they learn how to read?
They will not memorize books.
And can you read to them for 30 minutes?
Doesn't matter how long
and they learn how to read.
Doesn't matter how long you read to them.
Wait a minute, I got the other one. If you put a book in their hand, will they love to read? Just because you put a book in their hand. At
some point, they're going to hate you putting a book in their hand if they can't read it.
So little man don't like reading because he probably was given poor instruction, and it's so hard for him that he hates it. So parents, if your child hates reading, it's because he's a struggling reader.
They can't make the connections. You can't make a child love something that they can't connect to.
Is it parents' fault that they children can't read?
It's not on parents. And I have to be honest that it's really not on educators. It's on the training that we receive to prepare us to go into classrooms to teach.
But when we know better, who is it on? But when we know better, it's on everybody.
Yes. Yes. And that's how I ended up doing it. I saw it in the classroom. I saw kids. I mean, I literally remember kids crying because they couldn't do something. I'm like, why is a kindergartner crying because they can't figure this out? It's because the way I was teaching it wasn't the way that helped them to process that language in their brain. It wasn't structured. It wasn't explicit. It was more of a, if I show you this, you'll learn it. And they don't learn that way.
And the first day of school, I went to a local elementary school. See, I love the first day of school because I loved it when my children, all 4 of them, got excited about going to kindergarten and seeing the school bus and them having their little uniforms and their little pencils and things. They were so excited about packing their backpack. And I just remember the joy. And so I got to go the first day of school. I was invited to Bellshaw Elementary by the principal. And I was sad, but excited. I was sad because I knew that all of that joy and excitement that they had would be diminished within a matter of weeks. How does a kindergartner want to go to school so bad only to end up hating it? Miss Mary Sweat says, yes, my grandson hates to read. It's because your grandson struggled. I hated to read. I am a struggling reader. And I've said it across the country, and I've been transparent. It has nothing to do with how smart you are. I have a very high IQ.
Does not.
I was not taught how to read, and I had a disability that was not identified. Went on to be a nurse, went on to go to Trevecca Nazarene University, have a 4.0. Went on to be a clinical quality consultant in one of the biggest research companies in this country.
Right. But 42 million functionally illiterate Americans doesn't mean that now all of those people are not intelligent. They are very intelligent. It's how they receive the instruction that we need to change.
Come on.
Now we've got all of these people that are already out there functionally illiterate, and we are now pushing more kids through a system and allowing them to be functionally illiterate and only being able to read at a 3rd and 4th grade level. We need to change how we're teaching.
This country goes to war and they don't even leave their dead on the battlefield. But we have not educated children and people, grown people, and we have left them to fend for this. And this country don't even leave its dead in another country. We can go to another country and fight, and they're not going to leave them on the battlefield.
And it looks worse when they look like us.
Come on now. Oh, I was about to say it. Thank you.
The damage is worse when the kids look like us.
When the kids look like us.
Because they look at the behaviors before they look at the academics. And 9 times out of 10, it's the behaviors that are the result of the failed academics. That's what I
want to stop right there because somebody commented in here about behavior. Let's talk about that. We're going to educate you tonight, baby. Everybody about to get educated up in here.
Yeah, I'd like to share that one.
You go for it. See, our children are getting in trouble. They're getting suspended. They hate school. They hate reading.
Right.
And then parents are shamed.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
That starts early. Again, I started teaching officially in kindergarten. And that's where I began to see, just small behaviors, just, little misbehaviors, but kids are kids and that's normal. But when you get to 1st grade and 2nd grade and the behaviors become a bit more challenging, more defiance, it's because a child is frustrated that they are not able to perform the work that they see their peers doing. And I read somewhere that a kid would rather be called bad than stupid. And so the reality is that because these children know that they have a difficulty on time learning, and unfortunately the teachers don't seem to understand that, they miss it for whatever reason, the children become frustrated. They are children. They become frustrated that they know they can't do or perform the way they see their peers performing. And in order to deflect essentially they just start misbehaving. So that's why we have to make the focus on academics and finding out where those struggles are for those children, so that we can catch them and to fill in those deficits that are real, that exist for those children.
The fake stomach aches.
All the headaches.
The fake headaches.
Trust me, I've seen it in kindergarten.
The putting my hands on everybody and everything. The getting up and exploring in the classroom. The attention deficit that everybody says that every child has.
All of it. I have very vivid memories of some of the students that I've taught, that because I did not have the knowledge that I have now. I spent 3 years studying this. I'm by no means am I expert, and I need to say that I'm not an expert. I'm just an educator that realized that there was something missing in what I was taught, and I knew that I needed to figure out what it was. And when I finally did, as a matter of fact, Emily Hanford's podcast was what started me. Emily pushed me, and I keep saying that. She pushed me to begin to really look at it. But before that, I saw so many kids who were struggling in school with just foundations, learning letter sounds, being able to learn sight words. And I didn't understand that that was part of how we were instructing, how we were teaching. We were teaching more from trying to get kids to memorize sight words. We were teaching, with the cute pictures, but not necessarily connecting sounds to letters. And children were really struggling. I had specifically kids complaining about headaches, stomach aches. They didn't want to be at school. And it couldn't have a reason to explain it. Of course, these are kindergarten and first graders. They couldn't explain that. And then you have some that were really angry about it. And you're talking about behaviors, you're talking about challenging behaviors. You got some major challenges at that point, because those kids are not going to stay small. They get bigger, and those behaviors get worse. But if you address that in their learning deficits, you would definitely minimize those behaviors. There are going to be a few that may have something beyond just that learning issue.
But not everybody like that. Our community is being targeted as every child has, they're Black, number one, they're poor, number two, their parents ain't nothing, ain't doing right, ain't teaching them right, number three. Those are the top 3 reasons why education systems say that they cannot educate Black children. I'm just going to tell the truth. But it's hard for some people to hear, but it's the truth. That's why they say that they can't educate our children. And I am inclined to believe they don't want to at a certain point. When we know the things that we know now, see, when you know better, you do better. And I don't believe that there's an educator or people in the education system that wake up in the morning and say they want to fail children.
Right.
When we have the information that we have, we still have to ask, is this intentional, or is this a coincidence? And all roads lead to intentional. The state of Tennessee has implemented Reading 360 as a way of trying to right the wrong, as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
And Reading 360, they're providing phonics-based resources. There was a literacy law that was passed that was actually went into effect July 1 around professional development for teachers. But also there is a 3rd grade retention law that I am very afraid of, Sherri, that will be going into effect year 22-23. And Friday we had all of these TCAP scores that come out, where we have schools whole like areas of destruction where the elementary, middle, and the high school are low performing. And we're talking about retaining 3rd graders if they're not proficient, when we haven't even got the fundamental thing right of making sure that our educators are able to teach children how to read. And we both know who's going to do that.
What'll happen is, when you retain a student, all you're doing is you're retaining a student who struggled in a particular grade to repeat the same kind of instruction they received that year. What's the point in that? Clearly, they are missing something in the instruction. Why retain them in the same grade to repeat the same instruction?
Come on now, I've been asking that. Only to give them the same thing. Don't you ain't gonna give them nothing different.
No.
It's just like having a house on fire. It's like having the house on fire and say, hey, bring me the gasoline so I can put the fire out. It's plain insanity. Bring me the house is on fire. Bring me the gasoline, baby, so I can put the fire out. And I just don't get it. Mary Sweat said, you are describing my grandson to the T with his behavior issues. That's because this is the truth.
Yeah, the foundational skills that he needed, he didn't get.
And he's not the only one. Well, Sherri,
yes.
Why is that not a crime?
It should be. I used to, when I first discovered it, I'm like, this really should be a crime, because essentially we're setting these children up to fail. Mm-hmm. We are setting them up to fail, and particularly those that look like us. That's the reality. Black kids and Hispanic kids are the ones that are going to be set up the worst.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit. So there may be some parents on here who say that they have white kids and they're struggling to read too. I'm going to talk about it. You know, I don't sugarcoat nothing. White parents have the privilege and the power to do so. They have, and what I mean by privilege and power, money, resources. Yep. Many times I have been told on Twitter, even this year, when I was trying to find a school for my son, and I was struggling. I was sitting in the dark crying, you know, just really, really struggling. And people would get on there and say, homeschool them or send them to private school. Somebody even sent me a link to a boarding school that's $56,000 a year and told me to send my son there. So I done said what I done said, and I mean what I say, and I don't take it back. We don't have the privilege and we don't have the power to do that. And this is the times that we're living in, where we are the have-nots. There's the haves and there's the have-nots. And we typically fall in the have-not bucket. And so it's not that we can up and just quit our jobs and homeschool our children. First of all, that impacts us financially and socially, like emotionally too, because and the safety of your child. We can't leave our children at home and go to work and then talk about we go homeschool them in the evening. Who's gonna watch the children? It's not like it used to be where, you know, we had multi-families living in the house where grandmama was there, you know, and they could help out with the children. Most of us don't have that type of privilege to be able to do that, and so surely don't have the money to invest, you know, pay our taxes for a school and have a school at home. Like, who can do that? And I sure in the hell ain't got $56,000 to send my child off to no man's land for somebody else to do things to him and say things to him and him not understand his culture. I don't have that.
But that means that we need to, the public school system. And I know that we can't necessarily wait for this to happen, but that means that the public school system has to create spaces where teachers are knowledgeable about the science of reading. They understand how the brain processes language, and we are working on meeting the needs of these students with the language at the foundational part of phonological and orthographic stages of learning, and making sure they get those. But teachers have to have the training and the understanding to provide that for the students. And I had an interview earlier, and one of the things that I was thinking is that we probably even need to put some kind of literacy centers in middle and high schools, because at this point we've got kids going through middle and high school that have never learned to foundationally read. They've never learned the learning to read part. And so now these kids have been pushed on to middle and high school, and they're in spaces where they can't read. they're reading in middle school or elementary school level. We need some kind of literacy centers or spaces in those areas in middle school and high school that will address the deficits for those students that are still in those schools learning before they graduate. We can't wait until they graduate, because once they graduate, technically we consider them adults. So we need to find centers, and somebody called it a learning clinic, put them in middle and high school so that those kids that are struggling can have their needs met.
Yeah, I think that those children are intentionally going to be left behind. Like, I've asked that questions to decision makers, and they don't have an answer for it. How do you? And that's why I use that term about we don't even leave our dead on the battlefield, because so now everybody is basically focusing on K through 3 literacy, right? Well, but what about everybody else that you never taught how to read? Hell, what about me? Like, you start like, parents should be like, well, hell, what about me? Like, y'all didn't even teach me how to read. But it's there's no intention to focus on those children. And we got all the money in the world, okay? We print our own money.
And we put a lot of it into wars and the military.
And you know what? This is the most lucrative system I've ever seen, the education system. It's a system where people can say that they're going to do something and not even do it and get more money for it. I mean, it's kind of genius when you think about it. Like, you can have a whole system set up to fail children. Say you're going to do some PowerPoints, programs, it never even get to the children.
Right.
The data comes in, they'll tell you that ain't what you seeing. Like, that ain't what it looked like. That ain't our fault. Like, we ain't got no responsibility in this. Like, it's the parents' fault. We ain't got nan check. We ain't set up nan program. We done sent our kids to educational institutions, and it be our fault. I don't get it. But I want to talk about something else. So we were featured on BET's Disrupt, Dismantle.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a beautiful little girl on there. And Soledad O'Brien asked her about like her dreams. And the little girl talked about she wanted to travel. And she asked her where. And she said somewhere out of Nashville. And that caught my attention. It probably did not catch everybody else's attention that I talked to. I would ask people, like, did you hear that? Like, and I unpacked that. And what I realized is she could not tell where she wanted to go because she had no background knowledge.
Right.
Can we talk about background knowledge a little bit? Like, what does that mean to be able to read, to have the back? And Visha's on here. She's looking. Visha and I often talk about this. We talk about the background knowledge. Like, what does that mean? Because parents need to understand what we're talking about background knowledge and reading.
Well, when I talked about the simple view of reading and reading comprehension being a product of word comprehension, word recognition, and language comprehension, the language comprehension is where the background knowledge comes in. And when you have children that don't have the experiences, again, language is natural, right? So when you have children that don't have the experiences with knowledge, then their background knowledge is going to be limited. Of course, when, again, either side of that product being weak, it means their reading comprehension is going to be weak. So children in class really need to be exposed. They may not get it at home. We cannot blame their home. Right. Whatever it is, that is what they have. They come. I remember people telling me parents bring their best child to the schoolhouse. That's what they have. You
almost made me cry. You almost made me cry. We bring our very best. I'm sorry. We bring the very best we have
to the schoolhouse. And you trust that in the schoolhouse, they will be given what they need. And that means that in the schoolhouse, we need to expose them to what they have not been exposed to. We need to expose them to backgrounds and experiences that they've not had in their homes. We cannot blame parents for what they have not experienced or provided for their child to experience. We have to remember also that for us, the experiences have been very different. And a lot of time we come into schools, disadvantaged. And so in the classroom is where that child is served. That's where they will be exposed to language that they don't use at home. We don't need to tell them that their language is wrong either. What we tell them is that this is how you speak at home, but this is how you speak at school. These are the words we say in school to express what we need. And that's what background knowledge is. It is providing that to children that they've not experienced at home. And so we have to make change in what we provide to students without blaming.
Without blaming them. Like that little girl, when she said immediately, because I was really learning about the science and I caught it, right? I caught it. I said she couldn't say, well, I want to go to Jamaica because Jamaica's not talked about in her. I mean, we don't have Jamaica in Nashville.
Just out. All she knew was out.
She just said, I just want to go. So I just want to travel somewhere. So she wasn't even exposed or given the background knowledge to be. She didn't have the background knowledge to even dream of going somewhere, Paris. She couldn't even say Atlanta. Like she didn't have the background. And it caught me and it grieved me. And every time I watch it, I go back to that part. It grieves me because she couldn't tell Soledad where she was. She just knew she just needed to get out.
She didn't have the experience. She didn't have the background knowledge, like you said. And that comes from being in the classroom where teachers understand that. And we expose them to as much as possible. Outside of the experiences that we know they may be having at home, and in spite of what we know they might be having at home, we still need to expose them to, other experiences, other words, other language to express, words that they're not familiar with, but they're being exposed to the understanding of what those words, what they mean, how the context of those words. We have to do that in the classroom. That's where it happens. That's what parents are trusting us to do.
I learned this as an adult, my story. I talked about it on What the Words Say, how I worked in an environment, but mainly with Caucasian women, with all of these degrees, and they would use all of these words and talk about things that I never experienced. And I would Google. Yeah, I'm telling the truth, man. I got to be transparent because I hope to help somebody, not help you. I hope to help you.
Right.
I would Google and I would read. And because the first thing I was thinking to myself, I'm going to be honest, I'm like, she ain't smarter than me. What I realized was I didn't have the background knowledge. I wasn't exposed to those things. And so I had to intentionally expose myself to things, because here I was in the room with scientists who were creating drugs, like cancer drugs. Like I worked with some of these scientists that's creating these drugs. I would be in the room with them, listening to their lecture and how the molecular compound and blah, blah, blah.
Right. Scientific geniuses.
The scientists, I was in the room. I'm in the room with the scientific genius. I'm sitting at the table drinking my water with you, right? So you're not no better than me. You were given something different than me. And I was like, I'll be damned, I'm going to get it too. I said it the same. That I even try to make sure that our parents, that we build their knowledge, even words and vocabulary. I'm not going to dummy them down because they're not dumb.
Right.
And if we give people the knowledge, the understanding, the tools that they need, especially Black people, it's some genius in Black people. When I look at every child, if I meet your child, I'm going to look at them and I'm going to say, I see the genius in you. I don't care what your report card says. I don't care what you might have heard. I see the genius in you. That's what I was put here to do, is to see the genius in all children. And so parents, what you should be walking away from tonight is we have a literacy crisis, and you got one right at your address, right in your zip code, 37207, 37208, 37218. You had 37115. I called them out. You have a literacy crisis, not knocking at your door, but right in your house. And your children may have been coming home with A's and B's on their report cards. But wait till it's time for them to take that ACT and enter into the most the excellent colleges and universities, when they have to take remedial courses and those types of things. And you wonder, like, what happened? Or if your child is at home behaving, don't want to go to school, feeling hopeless.
There's a reason.
Trouble.
There's a reason for that.
There's a reason behind it. Yes, people, it's the parents' fault, and the parents are parents. Yes, we struggle sometimes in our parenting. None of us came with a manual. But what the hell does that have to do with teaching my child how to read? What does they backpack smelling like weed have to do with teaching my child how to read?
Nothing.
What does hunger have to do with it when you got all the food? Go over there, that silver refrigerator, feed that child and teach that child. What does it have to do with anything? It's time out for excuses. This stuff is on purpose. It's on purpose. And so it's time for us to feed the belly if you need to feed it. Put some Febreze on the backpack if you need to put some. If you can't stand the smell of weed, spread with Febreze. And teach them phonemic awareness and phonics and comprehension and fluency. Teach them. And teachers and educators. I know. I said it across this country.
That you have to learn it. We have to learn it as educators.
They've been victims to this, but I need y'all to stand up with us. I need y'all to fight with us and say, you know what? They ain't give me what I needed either. And demand that with us. So we need great educators, Sherri. We used to sing a song at church. I need you. You need me. We all a part of God's stand with me. Agree with me. Like, that song meant something to me.
Yes,
and it
ma'am.
means something to me. And in this very moment. And so, Sherri, I'm gonna stop, and I'm gonna give you a chance to close us out with any closing comments. This has been a joy. This has been I know I ain't got no mascara on, but when you said we spend our very best into those buildings, it fired me up and it inspired me even more to keep fighting. So I'm gonna let you go ahead and
I had to learn that. I had to learn that as well. Parents send us their very best. And our job as educators, and most of us choose this. We don't fall into it. We have some people that fall into education, and that's true. But most of us choose it intentionally. I know I did. I chose it because I wanted to teach. What we have to do, though, in wanting to teach is we have to be open to understanding that what we were taught during our teacher preparation may have missed some points. It may have missed some major points. And for the students that we currently serve, what we were taught, 30% of those students will learn just because they can, and they don't need a whole lot of support. But there are about 60% of students that will need educators that understand the science of reading, that understand how the brain processes language. And we will need to provide explicit, structured, cumulative instruction in language, in the sounds that letters make, in making sure that we provide writing instruction that's also explicit. They can't guess at words. It doesn't help them to guess at words. We can't send a whole generation of kids through a school system and then graduate students that read on a 3rd and 4th grade level. We can't keep doing that.
So we have someone asking the question whether or not this is on YouTube. We will put this on YouTube. It has been a great conversation. Earlier this month, our Governor Bill Lee, bless his heart, declared this month Literacy Awareness Month. And so the month of September is Literacy Awareness Month here in the state of Tennessee now. And so we dedicate this speaker series to the parents and grandparents of Nashville PROPEL and the parents and grandparents all across this city. And for those of you who are listening nationally, we also dedicate this to you. Join the movement, join the fight. join Nashville Propel. You can go to our website, nashvillepropel.org, and join the movement, because we got some work to do. And the children can't learn if they don't know how to read. And then teachers cannot teach reading if they're not taught how to teach it. So thank you guys for joining us tonight. This has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you, Sherri, as always, for being so gracious to have these difficult conversations. You are expert in our eyes, and our parents say thank you. We can't wait to get you here to Nashville to be in person, but we got to get rid of the cooties first.
Hello. Definitely get rid of the cooties, and I will come.
When we was little, circle, dot. Like, now I got my cootie shot. We used to say that all the time. Girl, we got to get rid of these cooties that's going around here. Mary Swift says, thank you. Thank you all for engaging. This is not our last conversation about this. This is a conversation that I think that we must continue to happen. So share this speaker series. Thomas says, thank you. I hope that the goal of tonight was that parents would get a better understanding of what it means to know how to read and what it means to not know how to read, so that they can do some further investigation. Go ahead, Sherri.
Can I make sure that they come visit my Facebook business page? It's Designed to Teach Tutoring Services. I say a lot of stuff on there that we didn't cover. And I want parents to understand that, parents and teachers, our administrators and our educators need the training in the science of reading, but parents also need to know it. They need to know what it is. They need to understand it. So anybody's welcome to come check out my Facebook page. I'm out there.
Okay. And what's your Facebook page?
It's Designed to Teach Tutoring Services.
Okay.
That's the name. Designed to Teach Tutoring Services. That's the name of my Facebook.
And we'll drop that in the comments to make sure that people have that. And thanks again.
Thanks for inviting me back, Sonia.
Oh, anytime. I mean, this is my stuff right here. This right here. This is a game changer, right, for children, because I understand, if they can read, they can do anything. We've got this whole CRT conversation, and some moms like, have you read what wit and wisdom, like some of the stuff? I was like, hell, who cares? If they can read, they're gonna read what they want anyway. I mean, long as it's the truth, we're not lying.
Isn't that the point for them to have the power to read whatever they want?
Thank you. If they want to read about slavery, which is the truth, then let them read it.
Exactly.
They sang stuff.
Reading is power. It really is.
Thank you. And so parents, stop letting folk take away your children's power. That ought to church somebody. Stop letting them take away your children's power. So your children got some power right now. The power is knowing how to read. Don't let nobody take that from them off the top. Don't let them do it. Don't let them do it. All right, y'all. Have a good night. Love you guys. I'm going to go over here and cook these hamburgers and French fries. And,
thanks again. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.